What's the best example of it takes 20 years to build a reputation and 5 minutes to ruin it that you know of? This reminds me of that guy who sold his old company truck to a used car dealer and ended up seeing it in the news with some terrorists in the Middle East driving it, mounted guns and everything on that thing with his business and his name painted on the side. Great advertising! He was forced to close shop after because of the bad rep. Sad when you think about it since he didn't deserve it, but great example. A minister in my hometown died of autoerotic asphyxiation. His congregation didn't even hold a service for him. His family disappeared, and within a week it was like he had never existed. That's kind of sad. Of all the problematic sexual tendencies that pastors and priests are known for having, this seems so harmless. Well, not harmless, I suppose. Harmless to other people, at least. Prince Andrew did a good job of keeping a relatively low public profile for years after his divorce. The work he was assigned to didn't require much TV work. Then, after the Epstein accusations, that interview must have been the most excruciating thing I have ever watched. I imagine he walked away thinking he had done a good job, and yet for everyone that watched it, it was the nail in his coffin. American Ninja Warrior winner Drew Drexel. After years of training, competing, and coming up short, he finally won in Season 11 and became just the third person to ever achieve a total victory and win the $1 million prize. Months later, he was charged with child sex crimes. The court case is still ongoing, and he could face years in prison and massive fines. And to state the obvious, he will likely never compete again. Me, I worked at the same company for 10 years and had an excellent reputation. Some wild stuff went down and all the managers except for me had to be replaced. My reputation was fine at that point. Then we hired this crazy guy who was lying and saying strange things a lot. Then he was sexually inappropriate with a customer. I reported all of this to my boss. This crazy guy made up even bigger and more compelling lies about me. They believed him. I didn't do anything fireable, but they transferred me to a different location. I was told that I needed to shape up to save my job despite 10 years of maximum raises and promotions and glowing feedback. 2 days later, the guy was fired by HR because a customer reported him for sexual harassment. Nobody said a word to me. No apology, nothing. I quit in January. Fuck Office Depot. My father grew up believing he was an honest, hardworking, and loyal man. While he was absolutely a hard-working man, finding out when I was 21 that he had another house, woman, and child 20 minutes down the street that he went to on his frequent business trips dispelled the notion that he was honest and loyal. Director of a place I worked sent an employee a dick pic as a long shot. Employee was at a party where she promptly showed other people wondering, WTF just happened? He had access to her phone number, but she had never willingly given it out to the director for any social engagements. Obviously, he went through files and found it and thought it was a good idea. The worst part was that it was a picture of someone else's dick that he was claiming to be his. Anyway, he came in after his weekend and, after a brief HR visit, walked out. Oh, his wife worked there too and had just had a baby. The workplace is like high school, so everyone knew what happened about 2 hours after he was walked out. Marriage and career ended in the speed of sending a text. Small big industry, and the news got around fast about the whole ordeal. At the time, the place I worked at was in CA, and the place that happened was on the East Coast. It wasn't even a former coworker who told me the story, but my new manager who had never even worked at my old place. I then asked a mutual friend, my ex-husband, if the rumors were true. He confirmed as he was right next to the employee who received the text and unfortunately saw it with his own eyes. Edit: how did they know IT wasn't his? The guy was a larger dude, and the pic he sent with a leg shot was someone vastly more fit. My former boss in politics, who was hugely respected within his party and a secretly recovering alcoholic, got so angry about the opposite party winning the election that he fell off the wagon and then drunkenly sent an email to what would be his new boss calling him a Mormon sister fucker. He was fired and went on a bender for some time after that, ended up having to leave the area and move to the East Coast in order to get work. We had a guy on a super big important call where my boss was speaking and some guy comes off mute in front of 300 people and says, "Don't get why we gotta be on these stupid fucking calls. They're all just talking out their ass anyway. They're just here to say OHHHH look." And it cut off. Way high up guy that was speaking say, "Darian, guy that was talking trash finished that sentence for us. What have you got to say?" Silence. Come on Darian. Don't be shy, more silence. Okay, moving on. The backlash on Will Smith for the slap. His and Jada's whole attitudes are pretty whack, and that slap just did it. I don't think they realize how pretentious they come off. That whole red table stuff is cringe. There was a social media influencer, don't know her name, who was doing quite well with promoting her fitness wear brand. She was even working on deals with companies like Under Armour and Nike. Can't remember the exact brands, but definitely the heavy hitters. She was set to move into the $1 million income bracket until a single post. She showed a picture of her and her family eating tacos with the following caption, "We miss Taco Tuesday, so we're having racial slur for Mexicans that starts with W Wednesday." Instantly canceled by pretty much everyone, and rightfully so. Brand deal shut down immediately. Followers left in droves. Pretty much killed her career in a single post. Yes, but in a good way. He ruined a bad reputation. So, my cousin is special, which is to say, autistic. As such, he got sheltered as a child and teenager by his mother and came into adulthood as a spoiled, sheltered man-child who could barely function socially and wasted his money on stupid shit. Basically, he was like Chris Chan but didn't make videos of himself. He went incognito from 90% of the family when he was like 23, 10 years ago, and did his own thing away from the rest of us, and nobody complained about that. We heard about him getting and losing jobs, getting into fights with people, doing drugs, etc. But turns out it was exclusively the bad stuff that got around. Last Christmas, as it turns out, he was clean, no drugs. That spoiled, toxic attitude he used to have was gone, and he was cooking burgers for everyone at the family Christmas dinner. They were delicious. He'd apparently been holding down a steady job the last 6 years, hadn't been in a fight for about that long, and refers to his drug years as my stoner days and jokes about them. But the 5 minutes that really turned his reputation around. My sister started choking on an underchewed piece of burger. We were all talking amongst ourselves and didn't notice, but he did. He left the stove, ran over, started palm striking her in the back, and got her to cough up the big lump of unchewed burger and bun. We didn't notice anything was wrong till the first strike. Once she coughed it up, he just says nonchalantly, "Yes, see, there's your problem," like a mechanic noticing something wrong in an engine, gesturing to the lump. He showed us all up that day and proved to all of us that we were completely wrong about him, or at the very least what we knew was severely outdated and negatively biased. Edit. Jesus Christ, I commented this just before going to sleep and woke up like 10 minutes ago to see this has blown up. Thank you all. My mom ran a daycare for almost 20 plus years. It was her own business that she built up. Not only did I attend it, it was my first real job, and I fell in love with childcare because of it. We were very accommodating. We weren't too strict. Our goal wasn't to get a 3-year-old to read at a 4th grade level, but to give parents what they needed, making sure the kids were safe and well cared for, helping out along the way with potty training and weaning and such. We had such a long wait list, but still found a way to get the children who really needed it care. My mother sold it to a larger chain daycare when she retired. They made a bunch of changes, made a bunch of promises that kids will be reading, potty trained by 2-3, perfect little angels. Every child is different. You know why every child was potty trained by 3? Because if they weren't, they were kicked out. No comfort items at nap time, because they were making little adults instead of babies. It took about 6 months and their wait list was 0. They were offering incentives to sign your child up. They could bring on workers. I think it downsized, but eventually closed.